This week on LTC News, responding to drug overdoses.
But the trend today is not to try to arrest our way out of the problem. It's to try to treat people and educate people.
Making glass at Western Avenue.
And 1, 2, 3 off. Take a look.
And students speak out on gun violence.
Torn between, banning guns and also just providing more intricate background checks on people.
Stay with us. Welcome to LTC News. I'm your news anchor, Alanna Flood. Gun violence has shaken the country and stimulated a discussion about gun control, mental illness, and whether schools can be made safe. LTC News intern Morgan Joubert, a UMass Lowell student, went out to gather opinions of local young people.
We take a closer look at what the students have to say about the growing voices from their generation, changes in gun reform, and whether or not they're going to get involved.
Internally, I thought to myself, another one, and I feel like that is the main problem that we're having right now, is that this is happening so frequently that it's becoming a very big social and political issue, and it's sparking a lot of controversy around the world.
Gun violence is abusing that right, going out of your way to flash it, going out of your way to harass somebody with it, going out of your way to hurt people with it.
You have to be older to hold a gun and get your license, but off the streets there's people that can get them so easily.
We don't need assault rifles, we don't need automatic weapons, things like that aren't necessary in daily life.
I am a person that is torn between, banning guns and also just providing more intricate background checks on people.
It is something that you have to think about in school, at home, just your everyday life.
So it's a regular person, a handgun should do perfectly fine for self-defense.
Our school right now is basically we're wearing all our IDs for safety. We're shutting all doors now on our classrooms just for safety precautions. If anybody gets in the building or intruder or something, we will be alerted by our offices.
Several of the students that we spoke with expressed their thoughts about arming teachers.
The option of them being able to be armed is ridiculous because we've gone so far to a point where we're considering arming teachers, and it shouldn't go to that extent. For
teachers, I personally do not think that they should be armed.
What makes you think arming them would make it any easier for them? And then on top of that, that's assuming that mental health and, anger and what's the word for it? Resentment only happens in kids. I mean, what happens if a teacher that's armed with a gun loses it?
I don't think that teachers should be armed during school hours. I don't think that would be safer than them not being armed at all.
I feel like there are so many factors that play into it. What if a child gets a hold of it? What if a teacher is not in the right state of mind on their own?
We asked students whether people who are diagnosed with a mental illness should be allowed to buy guns.
I'm not against guns, but I feel like everybody should go through a mental evaluation before they should be allowed the right to bear arms.
Mental health is a huge issue, and I think everybody has mental problems. There's no such thing as a person that's perfectly sane.
If you're diagnosed with mental illness, I do not believe that you are qualified to make certain rational decisions, and owning a gun, I don't think, is one of them.
It's the going out of your way to acknowledge it, and holding it in and penting it up just makes it worse.
If they weren't allowed to bear arms, we wouldn't have so much gun violence.
I don't think that our country is doing a great job at mental health. I don't think that there has been enough awareness about mental health.
I do believe that change has to be made in order for this to stop in America.
And now the City Council synopsis for the meeting of March 6th. The Council unanimously approved first steps toward taking the property next to the high school by eminent domain in preparation for the high school renovation project. Their vote just begins the process. They did not vote to take the property yet. On March 5th, the Planning Board turned down the proposal for a private dormitory on Market and Cabot Streets. Councillor Noon suggested that the city work with the property owner to find a more suitable use for the property. 2 residents spoke in favor of a motion to improve facilities for bicyclists, including painting and upkeep of bicycle lanes and bike lanes segregated by a barrier for added safety. Councillor Cirillo said we should be maintaining our bike lanes as well as we keep up the lanes used by cars. Councillor Mercier said she agrees that there should be proper line striping, but can't support segregated barriers for added safety. She asked what the city would look like with so many barriers. It might be better for safety, but it would not make for a comforting city. Councillor Kennedy thought we should give the barriers a try in some areas of the city, and the motion passed. At the end of the meeting, Mayor Samaras said he would appoint an ad hoc subcommittee on decorum at city council meetings. With so many issues on their plate, a smoothly running council is in everyone's best interest. At the end of February, over a 3-day period, there were 20 overdoses in Lowell. The fire department put out a public warning about tainted drugs on the street. All of the overdose victims were revived with breathing treatments and Narcan, but it was very troubling. We spoke with the Lowell Fire Department and Megan's House, a local organization that works with women overcoming addiction.
So we had 20 overdoses in 3 days. So the city council passed a motion about a year ago to put out a warning in the media and via social media when there is a spike in overdoses, to warn people if you're using, we suggest that you don't use illegal drugs, but if you are, please be extra vigilant. There's a stronger than normal batch going around. There's a lot of overdoses. And please keep an eye on your loved ones if they're using heroin as well. And call 911 if anybody does overdose. When people buy heroin on the streets, they don't really know what's in it. And we're finding that there's a lot of fentanyl being mixed in. And fentanyl is about 50 times more potent than heroin. So when people do use fentanyl, it causes a lot of overdoses.
Opioids are pain relievers, essentially. Heroin is the only illegal form of opioid, but through prescription, patients are being prescribed Percocets or Vicodins. Those are also considered opioids. So a patient can transition from a prescribed opioid, such as Dilaudid or Percocet, and move to the illegal version of heroin. If, for example, the fire department is first on scene, we immediately begin rescue breathing before we even consider Narcan, because with most overdoses, what's happening is their respiratory situation is decreasing. So it's not an issue with their heart has stopped, it's an issue with they're no longer able to breathe on their own. So within a very short period of time, probably less than 20 seconds, we can set up our medical equipment and begin breathing for them. While that is being accomplished, someone else will be doing a full assessment, checking their pupils, checking their heart rate to look for other signs and symptoms, checking even for drug paraphernalia. If the person who called 911 is in the area, they can let us know, yes, in fact, they did do heroin, or yes, they are a known user. So then we can assume that the reason why this person is in the medical condition they're in is because of an overdose, and then we will administer the Narcan. And this all takes place within minutes of the initial 911 phone call.
In the past, the police department would arrest people for possession of heroin, but the trend today is not to try to arrest our way out of the problem. It's to try to treat people and educate people. So the police are concentrating more at the higher level with the dealers and the trafficking of illegal drugs. And we're trying to get the users into social programs to try to get them better rather than arrest our way out of the problem.
The residents here arrive, I would say the high majority of them have overdosed in the past and have been Narcan back to life, unfortunately, and they've been on their journey, their substance use journey, for quite a while. So it's not uncommon that we get them recently after an overdose where they've been Narcaned, and they end up in a detox and being stabilized and medically cleared. And then we work with detoxes and stabilization units. We also work with jails. At Megan's House, we provide individual therapy, family inclusion therapy, group therapy. We do take a holistic approach with them because they need to learn life skills, time management, coping skills, mental health stability. So there's a lot of factors that come in to play when getting healthy. And I see these young ladies blossom. So I just want to let people know there is help out there, and that to keep hopeful.
It's good to know there is hope for recovery for those struggling to lead a drug-free life. In this next segment of Locally Made, we visit Mill City Glassworks at Western Avenue Studios, where owner Aaron Lehman leads classes in do-it-yourself glassmaking. Let's take a look as Lehman teaches a group of people to make beautiful glass paperweights.
Today, we're going to be doing what's called a glass experience. So it's where I'm going to be helping someone make a piece of glass. I'm going to walk them through the process, keep them safe, make sure they come out with something really beautiful. So we get some glass out of the furnace, we'll add colors to it, and you're doing pretty much as you can as a true beginner in, a 15, 20-minute span. Whenever you're ready, try to angle slightly down on your way over. It's molten and it's liquid. It's sort of the consistency of honey on a warm day. Tap, little tap, flip 180, good. That's plenty of white. So right in the heat. So picture like 80-degree honey. It flows, and you have to keep it turning. If you stop turning, you're gonna see that it just falls right to the floor. So grab in between my hands. You get to play with the glass, stretch the glass out, melt it, and then start shaping. Nice, so they're starting to stick, right? You dip them in water, right back to it. And then you can roll it back up on itself. All those things are manipulating that color. It's very hot and fluid. It's a really fast material to work with. So once you know how to handle it, you have to think very quickly. Everything has to happen in the moment, and I like that. But then once you're in it, you're in it. And it doesn't stop until the piece is completed, which I really enjoy. You have your furnace, which is where your glass is kept. And then you have your reheating oven, which we call the glory hole. And you have your oven to heat the pipes, and then a cooling oven. So there's a lot of equipment that's involved in a glassblowing studio. It's not an easy thing to just get started with. And 1, 2, 3 off. Take a look. Yeah, it looks great. So you can grab in between my hands, and I'm gonna help you get started with it. You can see where the pipe is. We'll start right here. This is how I make my living. So I do this full time between teaching classes and selling my glass. That's how I create a living. So I make a variety of different glass pieces, from small little bowls, ornaments, paperweights, glasses, and then I also do a fair amount of sculptural work. And you can watch your colors sort of start to come out. You can see the white, and the yellow will look orange. Just keep it turning. Working here at Western Ave, I really, really enjoy. I'm surrounded by lots of lovely artists. If I was at my studio at home or something, I wouldn't have any other relationship with people. Here I'm able to talk to people, bounce ideas back and forth. And it's just a lovely place to be, So we'll tap it off for you, and then you're gonna grab the torch. And we're gonna go kind of like at a right angle, right over it. What we're looking for is color. Right? See how it's starting to turn orange again? Yep. But we want it to glow all around, and then we'll push it flat. All right, you ready? Yep. It's a fun process. I really like paperweights.
Mill City Glassworks conducts private and group lessons from Lehman's Western Avenue studio. Coming up, he's teaching how to create pint beer glasses, Easter eggs, and flowers. Ages 9 and up are welcome. In this week's Sunspot, Lowell Sun Enterprise editor Chris Scott sits down with Mayor Bill Samaras about some pressing issues in the city.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Sunspot. I'm Chris Scott, the Enterprise editor at The Sun. With me is Lowell's Mayor, Bill Samaras. Bill, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Taking time out of your busy, your busy schedule. I think you've been in that chair now at least 2 times, perhaps 3. So we at The Sun and at LTC appreciate your time. So we're going to try to.
It's been a busy time. Let's put it that way.
Let's try to hit 3 issues in the short 13-minute span. Let's hit on the city manager, a search for a new city manager, a search for a new high school principal, a job you used to hold, and maybe if there's time we can touch base on eminent domain related to the high school issue. So
I thought we'd talk about the weather, something interesting like that.
So Bill, I've got to ask you.
Okay.
In a month from now, who is more likely to be the city manager? Dave Nangle, Eileen Donahue, Tippa Golden, or Jim Marciero from Westford?
Are they the only candidates? I believe there'll be more candidates than that.
So tell us about the process that you guys adopted the other night, and where do you think this is headed?
Basically, we adopted the same process we used for Kevin Murphy, and the process that it's been ongoing for the past, I think, 4 or 5 city managers that I know of. Okay, and the thing is, the one thing I do is I believe in a process, and everybody has preconceived notions of who's going to be the next city manager. It was done with City Manager Murphy. It was done prior to that.
With City Manager Cox.
John Cox.
The only one who broke the mold there was Bernie Lynch, but we don't have to get into that.
But we won't get into that.
Yeah.
Too long of a
Yeah.
But the issue is what the majority of the city council felt was that you have to have a process, and the process would be that you would allow people to opt for the job. And we're looking in Massachusetts, we're looking through the City Managers Association, right? Because those are the people that you want, people who know Massachusetts law, what have you.
And you need to have a few interviews, right?
And you have to have the interviews, because no matter who runs for the job, I mean, the interview process, what it does, I mean, it allows us to really seek the best candidate possible. And there are certain candidates that people talk about having might have the opportunity to be the next city manager. But through this interview process, they're going to have to show that they have the skills, the knowledge, and the ability. I mean, can you show all of that in an interview? I'm going to tell you something. I've seen enough interviews in my life where you can really ascertain whether a person has that ability to do the job or really doesn't.
I know that the current state senator from the 1st Middlesex District, Eileen Donahue, has talked to you about the job, and she's talked to several city councilors about the job. She's not doing that just as an exercise in futility, as we both know. What kind of city manager do you think she'd be?
Based on her work as a mayor, 2 times mayor, as a city councilor, and if you look at it as a state senate, they want her to be the president of the Senate. Why? Because there are so many issues there. They feel there are many senators that feel she has the ability to deal with those situations. I feel that she can deal with many situations that are here in Lowell. Kevin has done a good job. We've got a good base, but as my friend Pat Mogan used to say to all of us, you want someone now to come in to take it to the next level.
All right. Let's move on to, speaking of the next level, the next search that's underway. As mayor, you also chair the school committee.
Correct.
There was a discussion at a recent school committee meeting about the search for a new high school principal.
Correct.
As we both know, the superintendent happens to be fond of the woman from Nashua that he brought in on an interim basis to replace Brian Martin, the former city manager. But there's some strong pushback on the committee that they'd like to see that job advertised and go through a process like the one you referred to for city council, with people applying and interviews, and it shouldn't just go to the woman from Nashua. What's your take on that?
No, that's my belief. I mean, I've been part of the process on the city council level to ask for an interview process. I said this with the superintendent. I expect an interview process here, because here's my feelings on something like this. Someone is chosen as an interim, or we're both seeking that job, but for whatever reason, you get the job as the interim, and you do a good job. But people get to like you and say, well, we want to keep Chris Scott. But the thing is, I've now never had the chance to get up and show my skills at doing the job. So when you have an open process, it allows everybody to, apply and indicate whether they have the capacity to do the job.
Now, what year was that you became high school headmaster? Was that 1969? Oh, no, 1991. Right. But you went through an interview process.
But I did start teaching.
You went through an interview process,
yes,
correct?
I did. Correct.
And how many other candidates were interviewed when you were selected?
There were 5 finalists.
5 finalists. And the current interim principal at the high school, I should say, head of school, she's welcome to apply. There's nothing precluding her from throwing her hat into the ring. And if she has done as good a job as the superintendent thinks she has done, then very likely she could be the front runner, correct?
It's the right thing to do, because there are many people in there that said, well, I didn't get a chance. And what this is all about is giving people a chance to apply. But you never know sometimes. I mean, I had said, somebody said, well, does the interview process bother you? I said, it would bother me if Ted Sizer decided to leave, at the time, Phillips Academy to apply for the job.
Right,
Because
right.
I'd have, as good as I think I could be at that time, Ted Sizer was.
He was kind of a giant in education.
In education.
If you had to compare the search for a new city manager to a search for a new high school principal, excuse me, I would say that the search for the principal is much more wide open than the search for a new city manager. Would you agree?
It depends. I mean, you can label it any way you want.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, Eileen is a formidable candidate. There's no question about it. I mean, she has the ability, the skills, the knowledge, and she has, served in an administrative capacity. And I'll tell you one thing, being mayor,
Excuse me.
I've come to realize the nuances of the job. It's not just cutting ribbons, but there are a lot of, issues.
And you do fully expect that she will be a candidate, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What do you say we move on to another hot button issue in Lowell? We only have a few minutes left. Yeah, like there aren't any.
Are there other hot button issues?
The eminent domain process of 75 Arcan Drive,
Correct.
the 6-tenant doctor's building, represented by a former city manager who still holds sway over a lot of people here in the city. You, as a proponent of option 3,
Yes.
want to see that building taken by eminent domain. There was a discussion about it at a recent city council meeting. It was delayed. Pending some more information. Can you tell us what you've learned since then?
Okay, I mean, we the city manager released, basic information on the process of eminent domain. And what people have to realize, eminent domain doesn't mean if we decide to go after the doctor's office, that it's going to be a 5-year process. It's an immediate process. It's an exacting process. It's not a process where, yes, they can be in opposition to it, but the thing is, the city still has the right to take the land, take the building, and start the
Okay,
process.
question.
It just means that you're going to go to court.
If 6 city councilors
Yeah.
vote to take that building by eminent domain,
Yes.
can the doctors then turn around, go to court, seek a preliminary injunction, or I'm not a lawyer, but prevent that taking?
No. It's as simple as that, no. We're in the process. We have to hire an appraiser. What happens, it has to meet certain standards. That appraiser goes in and appraises the building, the worth of the building. And what happens, the city council is made aware of that. The process starts. I don't know how many months, there's only, I have it, but there's so many months that they have to move. It's procedural. In other words, the one thing about eminent domain, it's not something that if you hire Clarence Darrow as the lawyer, he's going to get for you 5 years where somebody else couldn't do it. There's no such thing. It's a procedure.
Do the doctors have any avenue of legal relief if the city council votes, 6 people on the city council vote to take the building?
Actually, no. What they have is, if we settle on whatever price we settle on, we just use the figure $2 million, $3 million, we say, and they feel that the building's worth far more. They then have the right to sue. But meanwhile, the building would have been taken down, the new high school building would have been built, and it'll take, and that case goes to court. And what they can do, that's where they can get more relief.
Could the city, say the city council votes in early June, 6-3 or 7-2 to take the building,
Yeah.
is the city then on legally sound ground, if it wanted to, the next day, to put a wrecker there and rip it down?
No, there's so many months. But actually,
That's a stretch, of course. But
the thing is, right now, the process, there was a delay to get more information. But the thing is, starting next week, the process will start as to hiring the appraiser, bringing the appraiser in, setting up the rules that we will follow, and then appraising that property, and then going to court and following the steps. It's a procedural matter. It has nothing else to do. As I said, they can hire the great lawyer Clarence Darrow or whoever, Supreme Court justice.
just for timing clarification, when this show airs, you said this week it will actually be the week that we're in when the show airs, that the process would have started.
Yes.
And then what's next? The mayor, the former mayor, Ed Kennedy, was telling me that the city, again, as a proponent of downtown option 3, the city council hopes to have that eminent domain case all wrapped up, neat and tidy, before the city goes back before the state board,
We'd like
the
it
Mass
for
School
June-
Building
for June-
Authority.
For June.
And what's on the docket for that meeting?
Well, the thing is, hopefully, the procedures and everything's on time for the eminent domain taking. And, we could go into why do I believe in that property, because
We have 2 minutes, you
I was
can't.
there for 20 years. I know what we need. And by taking that building, we can build a new high school in 4 years, okay? And it's a whole different way of building the project. It's
Quick question on the high school. There are still some folks in the city, and you know who they are, I know who they are, who claim that when the final price tag comes in, even if it's for downtown option 3, that it's going to be $450 million or $500 million, it's going to be a lot of money that could ultimately delay or kill the project. Do you have that concern?
The thing is, I don't believe it's going to be the type of money. I've heard people say 450 million.
That seems to be the number.
We've heard 500 million. It's going to be in the 300, maybe 340 or something. I do believe.
And you think that's affordable?
Yes.
You do?
Okay. I don't think.
We have 1 minute left.
We can't do anything else. If we don't do this for the high school.
What about option 2?
Option 2 means almost a 7-year building period, and that is not. You're not going to get the type of building, the quality.
It's minimal rehab, correct?
That's correct.
All right, well, Mayor Samaras, thank you for coming in to
Thank
speak
you
with
for
us
the invitation.
on this latest edition of Sunspot.
Okay.
We'll have to have you back soon for a 4th appearance.
That's it for this edition of LTC News. You can find us on LTC channels 899, online at ltc.org, on Roku at LTC Lowell, or get the link on Facebook. I'm Alanna Flood. Thanks for joining us. LTC programming is supported by
the technology, the creativity.
Lowell Telecommunications Corporation.
The world comes to Lowell, Massachusetts.